the patch notes have landed. 0.1.0e has just dropped, and with it a ton of things. Now this is the stuff that I just went over in my last video, and there's just a lot more to this. So if you've already watched that video, it's a good summary of what's going on. If you've already read the patch notes, you're not going to find anything new here. And I will put the patch notes in the description as well as the pinned comment, but let me give you the down and dirty of these patch notes. So the biggest thing though is the passive point respecking. We know now that, for example, this should generally result in approximately 40 to 50% less gold costs for respecking between the start and middle of the end game progression. But what does that mean for characters that are not in the end game? So let me show you right quick here. My character's 43. I'm going to go ahead and press refund passives over here. This passive, which is an ascendancy passive, which costs more to refund than a normal passive, but we're going to base it off of this because earlier today, before this patch went live, I respect my ascendancy passives. Now it costs 4160. Yesterday, earlier today, it cost 5805, which you can see is a 33% difference. I had to use this because I'm not smart anymore, but that is the big difference here. You're going to be able to respec things at a lot cheaper of a rate. That is the biggest thing, of course. Also, you're going to be able to teleport across the map on various checkpoints that you're going to find. There was a number of huge buffs to melee characters, especially to any kind of warrior that's using a shield. Resonating shield, shield charge, and shield wall all now do scalable damage based off of the armor of their shield at 6 to 8 added physical damage per 15 armor. Also, stuff like Resonating Shield got a bonus to its radius. Siege Cascade, Storm Blast Bolts all got really big buffs. Staggering Palm and a number of other monk underperforming skills did get some good buffs. There were some nerfs to things like Tornado, Vine Arrow, and the Skeletal Arsonist, but a lot of other things came in as well. A little bit of a nerf to Electrocute, and a little bit of a nerf to the way freezing works. Now it has diminishing returns, so that when you freeze something, you can't just chain freeze them. It's going to have a little bit of a balance. A lot of end game and monster balancing has come in as well, so we'll see those things with this patch. But overall, I like the direction of this patch because it helps me out a lot personally, as I am a shield using warrior. Stuff like Stomping Ground, which is a support gem, that got a huge buff. It went from 20 to 30% damage to now 80 to 120% damage. That is a support gem that helps off with any kind of mobility spell or skill. Also, just a number of other buffs in that same purview. So if that's all you wanted to know, that's the down and dirty of these patch notes. You can find, again, the link in the description as well as the pinned comment. If you are heading out, though, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. If this video helped you, I want to make sure I respect your time if you've already read through it or if you already watched a video of this ilk. But for those sticking around here, let's get into these fun patch notes. Also, don't forget to check me out on Twitch, where you can see me streaming this game just like that in that corner right over there. But again, let's get started here on patch 0.1.0 for Path of Exile 2. And as I said, full patch notes, as you can see, basically checkpoints are now all across the map. There's more of them, and you can now teleport in between these checkpoints, which is going to be quite good. Passive point respecking, we just showed that off. But just to kind of reiterate one more time, it's a 33% decrease in the cost to respec an ascendant node. Keep in mind, typical node here, that's 832, so I would assume this is about a 33% reduction on this too. It's going to be more the higher your level, of course, because this is going to be on a sliding scale. Now, a lot of people have said they want this to be free. I understand that, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but what I'm saying is that if this is an early access meant to test things like the economy and how players will react to stuff like this, I think that this is a good way to test what they actually need to do. Does this truly need to be free? Okay, they're going to find out from player feedback based off of this adjustment right here. Did it need to just be a simple reduction in cost? So please continue to provide feedback, say, hey, I don't like this. I want this to be free. Someone had said a comment in one of my videos saying, I wish it were free on a specific day of the week, otherwise it costs money, which would be an interesting thing, right? Like that way it's like, yeah, you can test something out, maybe tweak some things here and there, but you've got that one day to just kind of go crazy testing builds, which would be a pretty interesting mechanic. I've never seen that for an ARPG. But as it stands too, comparing this to the way the Path of Exile 1 worked and their respec system, this is worlds better. You had to get a single currency to do it, and it was not easy to access that currency. So for example, let's say I chose this keystone, max life becomes 1, immune to chaos damage. Say I just chose it on accident. I just had I went like this and oh crap, I clicked it and I applied it like an idiot. Well, that broke your whole build. You'd have to go farm that resource if you could farm that resource. If that was your only character on a new league, you were screwed. So this, for a lot of Path of Exile 1 veterans, is a huge step forward in the respecking process. If you're new to ARPGs or new to Path of Exile 2, I can definitely understand why this is something that is a huge barrier for you. And like I said, just continue to provide feedback and they will continue to tailor things to the way people are talking about things. That's why this is early access and not a launch. So that is the big thing there with the passives. Let's jump back over these patch notes. Added a shortcut to open skills advanced information display by right clicking the skill on your skill bar, which I love. Like previously you do this, you're like, I got to go here to find out the information. Now I just go ahead and press right click and I get this, which is different than just hovering over it, right? I'm getting all the detailed information, which is really nice too when I want to compare the way the new shields work. So the new shield, armor and attack and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and bring up Resonating Shield. I'll bring this up later. My damage per second is 135 at my current shield because it has 234 armor. I'll put on a different shield here that only has 103, and you can see how that just sunk. So having a shield with particularly high armor is going to be very beneficial. Maybe it was affected by the fact that here, there we go. I just want to make sure that hammer wasn't messing things up because I need the strength from this. But again, this shows you how this is going to be a very helpful thing rather than you having to go through 2 different steps to get to that information. You can now compare equipped flasks when using a gamepad, added chance shards to the currency exchange, and added a button to travel to your guild hideout when interacting with the waypoint. Endgame and monster balance. I'm not going to pretend like I'm in the endgame. I'm not going to lie to you and sit here and just, fluff you off on a bush. I don't even know what the saying is anymore. I don't know what the majority of this means. So if you are in the end game, you're mapping, you're doing a lot of Atlas stuff, this stuff is probably going to apply a lot more to you. You're going to understand it better. So I want you to take a look at this and see the pain points, see if they hit the things for you. What I'm not sure of is if all this applies to the game across the board. I believe it does, but for example, the Siphon Flask charges modifier on monsters now drains 10 times less flask charges per second. This was unintentional. So this is a huge improvement. Granted, it was a buff to begin with. And that's something that you can feel at level 1 and 100, all the way in between, because they just completely tanks your flask charges. So I'm glad to see that changed, if it is changed outside of Atlas mapping. So again, pour through this. Not a whole ton has changed. That is kind of huge standout stuff like Trail of Ice Monster modifier now lasts for 4 seconds from 8 seconds. You're not going to feel it a whole ton if you're leveling up right now, stuff like that. But into the trial, the first trial of Ascendancy, we've gone over this before in the previous video, but it's still worth going over here because now you have scaling damage reduction based off of your distance to the creatures when you're taking honor damage. So you take 35% 35% less honor damage when in close range, tapering the further you are with monsters, and fixed a bug where damage over time effects are doing way more damage to you. Serpent Clan has better telegraphs, so now you can visually see if they're going to be popping up. And the fissure slam that creates the volcanoes from the boss of the trial now have those last half the duration, which was actually one of the biggest problems while dealing with it if you were a warrior such as myself. So that has been fixed for you. Skill balancing, there is tons of stuff here, and these things are going to be more valuable to you depending upon what class you're playing. Like Ice Shot Shards is not going to affect me, so I don't know how drastic of an improvement this is, but it is pretty big on paper. So Ice Shard Secondary now gains additional projectiles as it levels up, and now targets within a 90-degree cone will now travel base 200 meters per second from 100, so doubled in its speed, and the arrows and projectiles are now smaller and are the same size as the other arrows. So a significant change there. Rolling Slam is a huge one. Now deals 50% more damage to heavily stunned enemies, making it very good in the early game, and if you want to build into it longer, it is there for you. Barrage now has +2 repeats base, up from 1. Sniper Mark's cooldown reduced from 6 seconds to 2 seconds at all levels, making it actually useful. Combat Frenzy now can gain a Frenzy charge no more than every 3 seconds, from 7 seconds at level 1 to approximately 1.5 seconds at level 20. So huge improvements across the board on a lot of the things that people were not using on, especially Ranger. You know, Barrage, again, like we talked about here. Barrage now has 25% less damage on Barrage attacks from 60% less at level 1, same scaling per level. So opened up a lot more build possibilities and playability with a lot of the underutilized skills. But like I said, there has been some nerfing. Vine arrow damage over time has been adjusted. Tornadoes damage over time has been adjusted. But basically the way they did it is it's higher at lower levels and substantially lower at higher levels to make it so that you can scale out of it rather than saying, hey, it's the only one available to you. Well, guess what? It sucks right now. No, it's going to actually scale out with your level, which is going to be pretty cool. Also, for Unearth, increase the damage growth per level on Unearth, non-minion components, Bone Storm, Bone Cage, Bone Blast, and Power Siphon. Results in approximately 50% more damage at gem level 25 for all these abilities if you're playing a witch or a wand skill using, what's the thing called? Not tribalism, occultism. That whatever the witch uses. What a great informative video I've got. Fuck. Increase the damage growth per level on Essence Drain, Contagion, Profane Ritual, and Chaos Bolt wand skill. Results in approximately 33% more damage at level 25. So a lot of big buffs there. Bone Cage, crit chance has been increased by 2%. Skeleton Arsonist, though, this is a nerf. Their spirit costs now match Frost and Ice Mages from level 5 onwards, making them more expensive while keeping their costs early game the same. This is a big one for all of you shield users. Resonating Shield, Shield Charge, and Shield Wall now have 6 to 8 added physical damage per 15 armor on your shield at all levels, which is huge. Shield Wall for me was always pretty lackluster, but now I've got a pretty good buff here. At default, you can have 2 walls up without having to use any support gems, which is great. And it got its explosion doubled. If you're using Resonating Shield, like I do, it got a 0.5 increase in meters to its radius. God, worst sentence structure I've ever used ever. Siege Cascade got a huge buff. It scales better with quality. It has a faster reload. Its explosion now does more damage. It has 50% more damage against immobilized enemies from 50% from 200%. Is that a nerf? Is that a nerf? Am I dumb? Probably. Now searches for targets in 3.5 meters radius, up from 1 to 2.5, and now has attack time of 75%, up from 25%. Storm Blast bolts as well went from 5 bolts in the clip, went from 3 bolts to now 5 bolts in the clip, and from 9 active to 30 active bolts, which is huge. Also 30% less reload speed from 50% as well. You can see, and Plasma Bolt, Artillery Ballistas all got some buffs there. For the Monk, Gathering Storm, Wave of Frost, and Staggering Palm all got some love. So Staggering Palm's duration now scales with levels. It has 6-second duration at level 1, scaling up to 0.2 seconds per level from 6 seconds at all levels. Staggering Palm's projectiles now deal 20% more damage at all levels as well, and Wave of Frost now has 275% more freeze build up at all levels, up from 150% scaling per over levels. Concoction for the Apothecary Ascendancy class, 3 charges from Mana Flask, up from 5. Damage has been increased in approximately 66% more damage when the skill is level 20. So a lot of love was given to the Pathfinder Ascendancy as well as their Hunter Talisman, notable. Added a new lightning damage and electrocute cluster to the passive skill tree. Let's go ahead and take a look at that very quickly. It's in between these two. I swear to God, I saw this earlier. The handy dandy capability of the search mechanism, I found it over here. So skill speed, electrocute buildup, lightning damage, electrocute buildup, and lightning damage and electrocute buildup. It's over here. It's kind of just in that center line that divides your ranger over here and your monk over here, right? So right off of this branch, right next to Heartstopper. If you are looking for that capability, it is there for you now. Heavy Frost notable passive now causes hits to only ignore enemy resistance of frozen enemies if the resistance values were positive. Supercharged Slam now builds up stages slower but gains 40% more damage per stage from 20%. This may display as 20% still incorrectly until a later patch. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty has been removed from the support gem. So you have that kind of trade-off with the nerf. It is now difficult to chain freeze enemies. Like I said, that has been changed as well, and added a marker effect to Ember Fusilade's preferred target. Added the Tremor support gem here and the Biting support gem as well. Let's take a look at both of those. And by simply typing in B, there we go. So now The supported minion's command skill deals 30% more damage, as you can see here. And the tremor is a level 3 as well. And supported slam skills you use yourself, supported skills gain multiple independent chances to cause aftershocks, but deal less damage. Which I'm really big on this because I have aftershocks and jagged ground built a lot into my build. If you can see over here, lots of that. But supported skills have 30% chance to cause an additional aftershock, 15, 10, then all of it deals 35% less damage. So lots of aftershocks coming out from this new, these two new support gems added into the game. Fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposures gems no longer penalize damage of supported skills. They now have a 120% cost multiplier. And we know that that no longer penalizes your damage. Some other big ones, though, that weren't mentioned really in the previous post. Lacerate support now grants 50% chance to bleed, up from 30. And Venom support now grants 50% up from, or down from 60, sorry. Whoopsies, that should be red. Impact Shockwave now has an aftershock radius of 2 meters, up from 1.4. Biting support now grants 30, we know this one, up from 10. The considered casting support now only supports spells you cast yourself, but it also now grants a 40% more spell damage, up from 25, and 15% less cast speed, up from 15. So the aftershock support now has 25% chance to cause an aftershock, and the mobility support no longer has a damage penalty but applies 30% less movement speed. Ricochet support has a 40% chance to chain from terrain. Withering Touch is gone, now has 25% less damage from 50. And Stomping Ground, this one is huge. Stomping Ground support Shockwave now deals 80% to 120 of your strength as physical damage. Previously it was only 20 to 30%. That is going to make my slam, wham bam, thank you ma'am, way, way stronger. I'm using Leap Slam right here. This now has a disgusting amount of damage in this category because of Stomping Ground. Well, the DPS on that's not low, is not the same. I don't know why I showed you that. This is what matters. Deals 80 to 100% of your strength as physical damage. It's just going to be a nice little accoutrement added in. And if you put this on anything, that's going to be a mobility thing, right? That's every step you take. So if I put this on a charge, it's every thundering step I'm going to do. It's going to do this. But you can play this on a monk. Any other character is going to benefit from using Stomping Grounds. Use it on my monk. Some other item balance here. Charm modifiers on belts. Uniques from the Adorned now apply to Time Lost Jewel. Time Lost Jewel modifier as well. A lot of bug fixes. And I won't lie, I don't know what many of them mean. Like stuff like where pathfinding could cause jittering of the character in some cases. I've seen that happen. The biggest one that I noticed, though, was fixed a bug where certain rare monsters would respawn at checkpoints after consuming their corpses. An example of this would be is that people would go to Act 2 in the Lost City. They would go kill the beetle. They would cast Unearth on the beetle. They would go respawn at checkpoint, and the beetle would respawn. This has been fixed. The video I did on all of the farming locations, I believe, is not patched otherwise. I didn't see anything in here about treasure chests not replenishing on new instances or anything like that. So if you see that and I just completely missed it, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But I believe that the locations I mentioned in that video, it's Lost City in Act 2, it's the Crypts in Act 3, and it is the Mausoleum of the Praetor in Act 1. Those are my big targets for farming if you're looking to do so. So if those have been fixed, let me know. But again, a lot of these stuff like, you know, some spirit gems displayed an incorrect error message. I'm not going to go all through all this. And if there's other big bug fixes, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below as well. But these are your patch notes and a lot of really great steps forward. Like I said, the biggest thing people are going to have a problem with is going to come down to this, the respec cost. Some people want it free. Some people don't mind where it's at. You can go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Like I said, it's worlds better than Path of Exile 1. And those of you that are PoE 1 veterans, you probably agree with that. And if you're coming from a non-ARPG or you're coming from a lot more of a casual ARPG, the respec cost is going to be a bit of a sticker shock. And I think, like I said, the point of early access is to test these things and figure out what makes sense for the game's economy. At the current state, you know, maybe if you're level 20 or 30 or 40, you might be like, dude, this is sinking my wallet. But from what I've seen now and talked to people that are mapping in the Atlas map, which is 65 plus, they're swimming in gold, but still they're dealing with exorbitant costs to respec, like 200,000 or 300,000 gold. I think one person in my chat the other day was saying it was 100k to respec. So a 40 to 50% cut down on that is going to be substantial. So I want to see how this feels for those of us that have hit the actual beginning of the end game or midpoint of the end game. At level 100, right? That's going to be such a different situation. And I don't think realistically the majority of casual Path of Exile 2 players are going to get to 100, which is totally fine. It's early access. Play as much as you want. Come back whenever the fuck you feel like it. It's an ARPG. That's the way you're supposed to play them. Don't feel like there's a metaphorical gun to your head that you got to get to 100. Just play the fucking game however you want and play to and from whenever you want, right? Like whenever they add a new class, come back and play. Who cares? But I want to know what that sticker shock is like for those at that higher level point, because it's definitely felt in the lower levels for some of us that want to do a little bit of moving around. I respect 2 ascendancy points and it sunk me like 30k, which is, or 20k, which is pretty wild at the level that I'm at, right? That's pretty significant at 42, but at 65, that's less of a sink because you just have more money at your disposal. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.